The galaxy trembled beneath the shadow of Darcola, a tyrant whose iron fist crushed planets and extinguished countless lives. His syndicate, a vast empire of ruthless soldiers and mechanical enforcers, left no world untouched. Yet, in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, nestled on a serene, forgotten planet, lived Zoombi, a man of humble origins, bound to his family and the land he called home. Zoombi's village thrived in simplicity, untouched by war or ambition. Its people valued community over conquest, a rare gem in a galaxy consumed by greed. Zoombi spent his days harvesting the resilient crops of his world, his hands roughened by years of honest labor. His younger brother, Tark, idolized him, their bond unbreakable. For Zoombi, protecting his brother and preserving their peaceful way of life was his only ambition. But peace, as fragile as glass, shatters under the weight of unchecked power. Darcola's thirst for domination led his forces to the Outer Rim, seeking resources to fuel his growing empire. The Syndicate's fleet descended upon Zoombi's planet with the precision of a predator. Explosions ripped through the skies as Syndicate soldiers marched into the village, their faceless helmets reflecting the flames consuming the homes of the innocent. Zoombi and Tark were in the fields when the chaos began. The ground shook beneath them, and the air grew thick with smoke. Screams echoed from the village, pulling Zoombi toward the horror. Grabbing Tark's hand, he sprinted toward their home, but it was too late. The Syndicate had arrived, their soldiers corralling the villagers like livestock. "Run!" Zoombi shouted, shoving Tark toward the forest. The boy hesitated, fear paralyzing him. "I won't leave you," Tark cried, but Zoombi's stern glare forced him to move. As Tark disappeared into the shadows, Zoombi turned back, his heart pounding with rage and desperation. He lunged at a Syndicate soldier, wielding a wooden staff as his only weapon. The clash was brief. The soldier's mechanical strength easily overwhelmed him. A blow to the head sent Zoombi spiraling into darkness. When he awoke, the village was silent. Bodies lay scattered, and the air reeked of burning wood and despair. Zoombi stumbled through the wreckage, calling for Tark, but there was no answer. In the center of the village, a Syndicate officer left a grim message. "Darcola demands tribute." Zoombi's world was gone. His brother was missing, likely taken by the Syndicate to serve in Darcola's brutal regime. Overwhelmed by grief, Zoombi wandered aimlessly through the ruins, his mind a storm of rage and hopelessness. In the days that followed, Zoombi discovered the ruins of an ancient temple hidden deep within the forest. Drawn by an inexplicable force, he entered the crumbling structure. Inside, the walls were etched with cryptic symbols and depictions of battles between gods and mortals. At the temple's heart, he found a glowing artifact, a black orb pulsating with an ominous energy. As Zoombi reached for the orb, his vision blurred, and a voice echoed in his mind. "You seek vengeance," it whispered, cold and enticing. "I can grant you the power to destroy those who wronged you." Zoombi hesitated, his hand trembling. But the memories of his village, the laughter of his brother, and the face of the soldier who struck him down burned in his mind. He grasped the orb, and a surge of energy coursed through his veins. Pain and power intertwined, reshaping him into something more, something monstrous. When Zoombi emerged from the temple, he was no longer the man who tilled the fields. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and his body radiated a dark energy that bent the air around him. The artifact had granted him strength beyond imagination, but it came at a price. Zoombi felt his humanity slipping, replaced by an insatiable thirst for vengeance. The first test of his newfound power came when a Syndicate patrol returned to the village. Zoombi stood in their path, unarmed yet unafraid. The soldiers laughed, mocking the lone man who dared to challenge them. But their laughter turned to screams as Zoombi unleashed his wrath. Chains of dark energy erupted from his hands, tearing through their ranks with merciless precision. When the battle ended, nothing remained but scorched earth and shattered armor. Zoombi stared at his hands, both awed and horrified by what he had become. The power within him demanded more, urging him to seek out Darcola and exact his revenge. He vowed to use his curse to destroy the man who had stolen his world. The journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty. Darcola's empire spanned countless systems, protected by legions of soldiers and advanced technology. Zombie knew he couldn't face such a force alone, but he also knew he couldn't abandon his brother or the memories of those he had lost. With the artifact's power guiding him and a burning determination in his heart, Zombie set forth into the stars, a lone warrior against an empire. In the ashes of his village, the first embers of rebellion had ignited. Darcola's reign would not go unchallenged, and Zombie would not rest until justice was served. The rise of Darcola had sown the seeds of its own destruction. Zombie's journey through the void of space was as harrowing as the burden he now carried. The artifact's power coursed through him, an unrelenting tide of energy that burned and corrupted in equal measure. His once simple thoughts were now interwoven with the ancient whispers of the orb, guiding him, tempting him. The stars blurred as Zombie piloted a commandeered syndicate ship. Its sleek, predatory design felt foreign in his hands, but necessity outweighed sentiment. The galaxy sprawled before him, vast and uncharted. Zombie's focus was singular: find Darcola and bring an end to his tyranny. Each jump through hyperspace amplified the artifact's pull. Zombie felt its influence growing stronger, its whispers evolving into visions. He saw fragments of a ruined past, a time when the artifact was wielded by another, a warrior who had succumbed to its dark allure. These visions served as both warning and promise, showing Zombie the potential and peril of the power he now wielded. As his journey continued, Zombie encountered the remnants of Darcola's conquest. Planets scarred by orbital bombardments, cities reduced to rubble, and survivors living in fear. On one such desolate world, Zombie met Captain Idris, a former syndicate soldier turned fugitive. Idris, a grizzled man with piercing gray eyes, had deserted after witnessing the horrors of Darcola's regime. Idris initially viewed Zombie with suspicion, his hand never far from the blaster at his side. But as Zombie demonstrated his power by disarming a group of syndicate enforcers with his chains of energy, Idris's wariness gave way to intrigue. "You're not like the others," Idris said, his voice rough yet curious. "What are you fighting for?" Zombie's response was blunt: "Vengeance. Justice. For my brother. For my people." Idris studied him for a moment before nodding. "You'll need more than vengeance to take down Darcola. The syndicate doesn't fall to lone warriors, no matter how strong." Reluctantly, Zombie accepted Idris's offer of guidance. The ex-soldier had intimate knowledge of syndicate operations, including secret supply routes and weaknesses in their defenses. Together, they began targeting these vulnerabilities, launching precise strikes that disrupted Darcola's hold on the outer systems. Zombie's powers grew with each battle. His chains of dark energy became extensions of his will, capable of tearing through enemy lines with devastating force. But with each victory came a cost. The artifact's whispers grew louder, its influence more insidious. Zombie found himself losing time, waking to scenes of destruction he couldn't fully remember. Idris noticed a change. "That power of yours, it's eating at you," he warned. "You're becoming something else." Zombie dismissed the concern. "I'll control it. As long as it serves my purpose, I'll use it." But deep down, Zombie wasn't so sure. The artifact's visions became more vivid, showing him a future where he stood alone amidst the ruins of the galaxy. The power that had once been a tool of justice now threatened to consume him entirely. Their next target was an outpost on the edge of syndicate-controlled space. The facility served as a hub for transporting captured civilians, many of whom were destined for Darcola's brutal indoctrination camps. Zombie and Idris devised a plan to infiltrate the base and liberate the prisoners. The mission began smoothly. Disguised as syndicate soldiers, they bypassed the outer defenses and entered the facility undetected. But as they moved deeper into the compound, Zombie felt the artifact's energy surging within him. The presence of so much suffering and despair seemed to fuel its hunger. When the alarm was triggered, chaos erupted. Syndicate forces poured into the corridors, their blasters lighting the dim halls. Zombie unleashed his chains, tearing through the enemy with a ferocity that stunned even Idris. The artifact's power transformed him into a whirlwind of destruction, his every move calculated and lethal. As the last of the Syndicate's soldiers fell, Zombie stood amidst the wreckage, his chest heaving. The prisoners stared at him in awe and fear, their gratitude tempered by the raw, otherworldly energy radiating from him. "Is this what you wanted?" Idris asked, his tone sharp. "To trade one monster for another?" Zombie's gaze hardened. "I'm nothing like Darcola." Idris didn't respond immediately. Instead, he motioned for the prisoners to follow him. As they made their way to the escape ships, Zombie lingered, his thoughts a storm of doubt and defiance. The raid on the outpost marked a turning point. Word of Zombie's actions spread, painting him as a mythic figure, a harbinger of justice and vengeance. But while many rallied to his cause, others feared the consequences of aligning with someone wielding such dangerous power. Zombie's transformation was far from complete. The artifact's hold on him deepened, its whispers now a constant presence in his mind. It spoke of greater conquests, urging him to abandon his humanity and embrace his role as a weapon of cosmic justice. Idris, ever watchful, confronted Zombie once more. "You're walking a fine line," he said. "If you lose yourself to that thing, Darcola won't need to destroy you. You will do it yourself." Zombie's response was measured, but his eyes betrayed his inner turmoil. "If it means stopping him, I'll pay the price." The two men stood in silence, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. Zombie knew the path ahead would only grow darker, but his resolve remained unshaken. Darcola's empire had to fall, no matter the cost. As they prepared for the next phase of their journey, Zombie couldn't shake the feeling that the artifact's power was leading him towards something far greater. The command ship of Darcola's fleet loomed in the abyss of space, an ominous fortress wreathed in the energy of conquered worlds. Its angular design and pulsating lights reflected its master's cruelty. Inside, Darcola sat upon a throne of dark metal, his crimson armor glinting under the dim, flickering glow of his war chamber. He was a figure of power and terror, his every breath a reminder of the countless lives he had extinguished. Zombie and Idris approached the ship under the guise of a Syndicate patrol vessel, navigating through an armada of fighters and cruisers. The Syndicate's firepower was overwhelming, a testament to Darcola's dominance. Zombie gripped the controls with grim determination, the artifact's energy thrumming within him. It had grown almost alive, feeding off his rage and purpose. "You sure about this?" Idris asked, his voice tense as he monitored the comms. "No turning back," Zombie replied, his tone resolute. "This ends here." The patrol ship docked undetected, thanks to Idris's knowledge of Syndicate security protocols. They disembarked into the cavernous hangar, their figures dwarfed by the towering bulk of the command ship's interior. The air was heavy with tension, the silence punctuated by the distant hum of machinery. Zombie led the way, his chains of dark energy coiled like serpents around his arms. Idris followed, his blaster at the ready. They moved with purpose, evading patrols and security drones as they ascended toward the war chamber. As they neared their destination, a squad of Syndicate enforcers blocked their path. Zombie didn't hesitate. With a flick of his wrist, the chains lashed out, their ends glowing with destructive energy. The enforcers fell, their armor useless against the artifact's power. Idris glanced at Zombie, unease flickering across his face. "You're getting too good at this." Zombie didn't respond. He couldn't afford to dwell on the growing ease with which he wielded the artifact's power. Finally, they reached the war chamber. The massive doors slid open, revealing Darcola seated on his throne. His piercing gaze met Zombie's, a smirk forming on his lips. "So, "The wraith of my conquest finally reveals himself," Darcola said, his voice resonant with disdain. "You've been a thorn in my side, but I must admit, your tenacity is impressive." Zoombi stepped forward, the chains crackling with anticipation. "This ends now, Darcola. No more worlds, no more lives. Your reign is over." Darcola rose from his throne, his imposing figure casting a long shadow. "You think you can challenge me, boy? You wield power you don't understand. Guided by a rage that will consume you." Zoombi didn't wait for him to finish. The chains lashed out, striking with the force of a comet. But Darcola was ready. He raised his gauntlet, which glowed with an energy that matched the artifact's malevolence. The impact sent shockwaves through the chamber, but neither combatant faltered. The battle began in earnest, a clash of titans that shook the war chamber to its core. Zoombi's chains danced with lethal precision, striking from all angles, but Darcola countered with equal ferocity, his gauntlet generating shields and blasts of destructive energy. Idris took cover, firing at syndicate reinforcements that flooded the chamber. His shots were precise, but the sheer number of enemies forced him into a defensive position. Zoombi and Darcola's fight was a symphony of chaos, their powers colliding in blinding flashes of light and deafening explosions. Zoombi felt the artifact pushing him further, urging him to unleash its full potential. But with each surge of power, he felt himself slipping further away from who he was. Darcola seized a momentary hesitation, delivering a devastating blow that sent Zoombi crashing into a wall. The artifact's whispers grew louder, drowning out all other sounds. "You see," Darcola taunted, striding toward him, "that power will destroy you long before I do." Zoombi struggled to his feet, blood trickling from a wound above his eye. He gritted his teeth, the artifact's energy surging within him. "Better to be destroyed fighting for justice than to live as a monster like you." With a roar, Zoombi unleashed the artifact's full power. The chains expanded, forming a swirling maelstrom of energy that enveloped Darcola. The warlord struggled against the onslaught, his gauntlet straining to deflect the attack. Idris seized the opportunity, dodging blaster fire. He reached the control panel and initiated a sequence to overload the ship's core. The chamber's alarms blared, and the walls shuddered as the core's energy began to destabilize. "Zoombi!" Idris shouted. "We've got to go!" But Zoombi was locked in the fight, his entire being focused on defeating Darcola. The artifact's power consumed him, its whispers turning into a deafening roar. Darcola, weakened but defiant, managed a final, desperate attack. His gauntlet emitted a concentrated beam of energy that pierced through the chains and struck Zoombi square in the chest. Zoombi staggered, the artifact's energy faltering for a moment. But instead of falling, Zoombi stood taller. The artifact's energy surged anew, overwhelming Darcola's beam. With a final cry, Zoombi directed the chains in one decisive strike, piercing Darcola's armor and ending his reign of terror. The warlord collapsed, his gauntlet shattering into fragments. Zoombi stood over him, his breathing heavy, the chamber's alarms ringing in his ears. "Zoombi, we have to leave now," Idris yelled, grabbing his arm. Zoombi hesitated, the artifact's power still coursing through him. But Idris's voice broke through the haze. Shaking off the artifact's grip, Zoombi followed him toward the escape pods. As they launched from the command ship, the core's overload reached critical mass. The ship erupted in a blinding explosion, a fiery beacon in the void of space. Zoombi and Idris watched from a safe distance, the realization of their victory sinking in. The Syndicate fleet, now leaderless, began to retreat. "It's over," Idris said, his voice a mix of relief and exhaustion. Zoombi didn't respond. He stared at the artifact in his hand, its energy now subdued but still present. The battle was won, but the cost was heavy. Zoombi knew he would carry the burden of the artifact's power and its whispers for the rest of his life. For now, the galaxy was free, and Zoombi had fulfilled his promise. But the road ahead remained uncertain, a path shrouded in the shadow of the artifact's influence.